Yay!
Hello, Fiely and Dennis, and welcome to our M&M Disenchanted Zoom catch-up with you. What a pleasure to be here with you again.
Nice to see you.
Great to see you.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like old times again.
Yes.
Like old times. So I had the great pleasure of being involved with a production of Disenchanted at the Kravis Center in 2015. But I wanted you guys to know a little bit about M&M, and this is a South Florida theater company where everyone involved, from artistic team through designers and cast, are all Florida based. We always use live musicians, so hopefully we're going to present your music the way it was intended. This is going to be the South Florida premiere of your beautiful baby, Disenchanted.
Yay! And we're
Yes.
so happy and proud that you guys are doing it. We saw the cast. We Googled them and we listened to them sing, and we can't imagine, a better cast for the premiere.
Yeah.
So we're so excited for
And
you.
the fact that, Jonathan, going back to what you were saying, the fact that you've lived with this show practically as much as we have, and especially in that out of town tryout over at in Tampa. And I mean, you really have this depth of knowledge of what audiences respond to in the show, what actors respond to, and so boy, they couldn't have it any better than you at the
Right.
helm. So we're
Yeah.
really excited, very pleased.
Yeah, that was a developmental time, and you saw a lot of things we found that we took to off-Broadway and beyond. So we're so
Yeah.
excited.
Tell us a little bit about how you came up with this idea.
Sure. Well, I used to be a history teacher, and I used to teach about the real Pocahontas, the historical figure, and so then the animated movie musical came out. This was, of course, years before I started writing it, and I realized that Pocahontas up on that screen didn't really match what was reality. And so I sat down and I kind of wrote a one-off song, and then put it aside and had fun with it. But we were working on other shows, and then we kind of circled back around to it a bunch of years later. And in the, gosh, it would be like the early 2000s. So it was a good 15 years later, and circled back around to it and realized that there are a lot of princesses who don't like the way they're portrayed in today's pop culture because it's not based in any form of reality or empowerment. And so as these princesses started whispering in my ear, more songs were coming, and we realized, we have a musical. And that's sort of how the whole thing came about, was, just the realization of what's not real versus what is real. And that's where Pocahontas' song Honestly comes from.
And Dennis would come home and say, "Guess which princess spoke to me today?" And I'd say, "Who?" And then he'd play the song, and then, and then we got like a bunch of songs, kind of like a review kind of type. We just had songs, and then we built a show around that, inspired by like the Muppets, vaudeville, and everything. And that's why we have the show that it is now. That it is kind of a review of guest stars of all the princesses that you've grown up with and everything, speaking the truth, or that their version of the truth.
Yeah, we say belting out the truth about the real happily ever after.
Mhm.
Right.
Tell us about some of the significant productions or workshops that you had with it.
Well, doing dates now here. I started writing it in 2006. And then in 2009, we had our first workshop of the show in New York City. Fiely and I paid for that workshop.
We had no money, and we didn't want to wait we're very impatient. We didn't want to wait for producers, someone to say, "Hey, I believe in you." We're like, we believe in us. So we went to New York, put out a casting notice that was responded to by
700.
over 700 people. We were like, "Oh my goodness, we have something here."
Yeah.
And we did our own reading and workshop. We paid for a room at Pro Studios, which is one of the studios that people use in New York City, and just rented a room.
Put up
And
100 folding chairs.
put up 100 folding chairs and said, we're going to have our own reading, you know.
Isn't this how you do it?
And the reading kind of sold out just based on social media
Mhm.
and everything. And
Well,
that
it's
was-
funny because we would be in rehearsals at both Ripley Greer
and
Studios and Pearl Studios in New York. They're on, I believe, 8th Avenue.
Yeah.
And we would, we'd be playing some of the songs. We'd be looking out this window over here, and there'd be Stephen Schwartz sitting at another piano playing, his music for a
Or
new show.
SNL rehearsing in the room.
SNL was rehearsing,
Like
they
this
were
great.
doing some reading, and I think Billy Elliot was across the hall from us, the
Right.
Broadway show.
It's where all the shows were rehearsed and practiced and auditioned.
And before we knew it, as our princesses were learning the songs and singing the songs, suddenly we had this crowd outside of the door going,
Right.
"What's this show? What's that? What is that show? It's called Disenchanted, and
Yeah.
what is it about?" So we started to get a word of mouth just by the rehearsals. That was 2009. In 2010, we won the New Jersey Playwrights Contest,
Mhm.
which was actually only for plays, but Fiely kept saying to me, enter it. And I was like, it's a playwriting, it's not a musical writing. Anyway, we entered it and we won. And I think now they have 2 branches, right? Yay! The 2 branches of it.
I always say just try it, because the worst they
Yeah.
can say is no.
Right.
So
And so 2 branches, they have a playwriting and a musical writing competition now. What we won was the right for them to do it, so we could see how it works.
Yeah.
And what doesn't work, we'll rewrite.
yeah.
And
So
then from
they
there,
did a fully staged, produced version
Right.
that we were able to see. Yeah.
and from there we went to the Orlando International Fringe Festival,
And then
where
worked
we
on it
sold
some
out
more.
about 340, 350 seats a night there. And that's when we really started to realize, that was the first full production of the show. We started to realize maybe there's something here. Maybe there's
Right.
something going on. Right.
Right. And then through a connection, some producers came down and saw it. And then
We were in New York within a
and
month.
then within a month we were in New York. But then it took 5 years to develop the show out of town in
Right.
LA and San
You always go
Francisco.
to New York to
work out of town and then come back. And then finally we opened off Broadway and
in
then
2014.
yeah.
And played run in 2014, and then a run in 2015, and then there was a North American tour after that. But right before that, of course, we were in Tampa with you, Jonathan, putting the show together.
Right. And now we just now the show is being licensed worldwide.
Do you know how many productions there have been of your show?
Yeah, I have a close approximation. I mean, I've gone through and counted. I think we're at
Currently
2. Well, it's over 200. I know that on 5 continents, in 5 languages, in 14 countries. About to add a 15th country. Spain is going to be doing it in July, in Spanish.
Italy just finished their 4th tour.
Their 4th national tour of the show in Italian. And we've seen a lot of them. We've seen the one in Paris, France. That was great. We saw Italy,
Dominican Republic.
And we went up to Denmark. The show was done in Danish, the Little Mermaid's native tongue. And it was the first time the Little Mermaid sang in Danish. And so that
But
was
it's
pretty
great
cool.
because people laughed at the same spots generally
Yeah.
where we didn't understand the language, but they laughed at the same places. So that's good. We're like, oh. And the interesting thing is we've had to localize some of the jokes. Like in All I Want to Do Is Eat, we've had to change the foods
Right.
depending on the culture and the local things. So
Sure. What's
that was,
local?
That was
to-
interesting. Yeah.
And what's local to you there in South Florida?
Yeah.
You may be writing us saying, hey, we're thinking about this because South Florida
Right.
will react to that. And we'll go,
Right.
yeah, okay,
Right.
sure.
What do you think is that ingredient in Disenchanted that kind of touches people universally?
It's funny. I'll give 2 quick examples. One is from our time in Tampa with you. I remember, because nobody knows what the author looks like, right? So I would always go out after the show, and there would be a lot of people milling around and talking about the show, and I'd just be out there with my phone looking like I'm texting somebody or whatever, and my phone is blank, and I'd just be listening because those are my critics,
Yes,
right?
you can hear what people truly want.
They'll tell the
Yeah.
truth. And so what I would always hear is a relatability to the show and specifically to the different characters. I just remember groups of people, groups of 5 people, 6 people standing there going, well, I'm definitely the Snow White in our
Right.
group, and you're the Cinderella.
And the Sleeping Beauty.
So I think people can relate to it. The second example, I think, is how we wrote the show. We wrote it on 3 levels. The first one is the entry level, which is the sort of way the audience comes into the show, which is this is about princess culture.
Yeah,
And-
which everybody knows about.
Sure.
Worldwide.
Yeah, everybody, can relate to those stories because we all grew up on them.
Yeah, fairy tales. These fairy
Reading
tales
the books.
characters have been around since for a long time. Yeah,
Longer than us, which is
Yeah.
hard to say because we're not young. So
even longer than us.
yeah. And so with that, basically the second level then was to go directly at today's pop culture and how the princesses were portrayed in the pop culture. So basically that was going at women's issues and empowering women and diversity.
And the
then-
commercialization
Yeah.
and exploitation of these characters in pop culture and in capitalism.
And then that third level we think is why the show connects in pretty much
For men and women and
men
for
and women in
all
any
ages
language.
and in all ages.
any country it's played in, is we wrote it on a human level. So the songs, though they're about the princesses, the songs really relate to anybody because it's all about human nature. We all have a relationship with food, so
we all
I want to do
we all
is eat.
feel different sometimes. We all feel like we don't belong,
Mulan song.
right?
So every single character in the show is relatable on a human level,
Right.
As well as the princess level. And we think that's why the connections there. We also think with the cast, maybe you're experiencing this there already, is the cast really seem to have a camaraderie,
When they do the show.
everybody has their moment in the show. They have their song. There's no place to hide up there. So everyone's very supportive of each other. And we think that kind of cast feeling, kind of like
Yeah.
back in the day, like Godspell would have, or a show like that. There's no, as we all know, there's no better feeling than that in
Yeah.
theater. And
Every
so we think that
character,
connects.
there's nowhere to hide in this show when you're in the show. You have your moment and you have a chance to shine in every cast member of the show. So there's no chorus, there's only stars.
Yeah, I think we just think the topics that we chose to cover in this, because it was mostly about pop culture and the human existence, whether it was about misogyny or racism or self-acceptance, relationships to food, we body image,
yeah.
sexual identity, all of those things we decided we were going to handle with a sense of humor, but we
Right.
were definitely going to handle them.
Right.
And I think the audience and actors and creatives can
Yeah.
connect to that message.
And it's issues when you see the show, you'll see parts of us because we created it together. And so all those issues connect to us in terms of everything being different, being alone, struggling with those issues. We both have been through that, and that's what you see on stage. And hopefully people can connect to that.
Yeah.
The issues that you just mentioned, I think the majority of anyone who has a connection to the human condition will relate to all of these things that you just mentioned. Was there a princess that didn't make it that you were rooting for or working on? And now I know we love all of our children equally, but if there is a princess or a character that you have a special connection to.
Well, I'll go one deeper than that even. There's a song that we absolutely love that pretty much every person who's ever seen the earlier versions of the show, as we were doing workshops and whatnot, said, if you ever cut that song, I'll never speak with you again. And unfortunately, that song got cut from the show, as any author will tell you. You're constantly, tasked to rewrite. And it was a song between Belle and Jane Porter. who's not
Tarzan,
actually
who's not
a
a
princess,
princess.
which is why she got cut. I
Right.
know, right?
But the song was called
It was called Beasts,
Beasts
of
of
Burden.
Burden.
And the idea was, why do women fall in love with the men they fall in love with?
Or why do people fall in love?
Why do people
fall in love
this case,
with,
these
yeah,
two women?
right.
And why do they? Why do we fall in love with who we fall in love with when it makes no sense whatsoever?
Right.
Why would Belle
So Jane
fall in love with this beast?
and why would Jane fall in love with this guy from Tarzan? So we were like, so say they kind of, it was kind of a sideshow, I will never leave you kind of feeling.
Very much, very much. And we love that song,
We
and
do.
the actors love that song, and the
Right.
audiences love that song. Unfortunately, when we got to, the out of town tryout and off Broadway, it became more about these women have to be princesses. And
Right.
so Esmeralda left the show.
Right. She was in the show.
Jane Porter left the show, and with them, so did their songs. So
right.
it's always a sad thing. As an author, you write things and you go, that's
Yeah.
really good. I guess we're gonna have to use it for another
Yeah.
show.
Also, some of the characters, like Little Mermaid, had two other versions of the songs.
Three
where-
total songs.
Three total songs, and then we landed on Two Legs. Before that, we thought maybe she was like storing stuff, because she had a lot of forks and everything. Like
You
maybe
could say it. We thought she was a
she
kleptomaniac.
thought she was a kleptomaniac. We're like, maybe it's, who knows? And then
So-
with Pocahontas, we had a song called Crazy Hair, because she had a lot of
Right.
hair.
Yeah, so we had different. I know.
I know.
And I think when we started to realize that the show was something, it was a parody for sure, but it
Right.
wasn't just a spoof. It had
It
a
had
little something to
To
say.
say, yeah.
That's when some of the kind of sillier songs
Right,
dropped off,
yeah.
and unfortunately, some of the characters went with them.
Yeah. Because we had to go beyond like parody, where we wanted to make a statement.
Yeah.
Like Forbidden Broadway is great parody.
Oh yeah.
And they make fun of the thing, but we wanted to say something more. Like Two Legs is more about, she fell in love with this guy, and
Well, don't we all-
she gave up everything
Yeah.
to be with someone.
And don't
That's
we all
the
do
idea of the
that?
song.
Yeah.
And then with Pocahontas, it's like, why did you tell my story not honestly?
Right.
We thought that was more important than I have crazy hair.
Right. Exactly.
The lyrics are so good. Each song is like its own one act. And as funny as it is, when you break down the lyrics or what you're hearing, I mean, I believe that our audience is going to really be ruminating on what they experienced on the way home, and probably for the next, couple days, because there's so much there. You've got the entertainment value, which is, at a 10, but then there's also all of these poignant words and messages that it's like a big old layer cake.
A lot of people come back because of that, because they're like, wait,
What
we
did
have
I
to come
miss?
back. Yeah, because the show goes fast and there's a lot of jokes, but then there's that level. So when you see it again, even 3 times, you go, I'm enjoying this now. Yeah. So
Well, and we knew what we wanted to, how we wanted to put these messages out there, how we wanted to put these princesses out there, was that we didn't want this to be, a lecture, or
Right.
so heavy-handed. So we put a layer
yeah.
of comedy over it.
Yeah. We wanted to open your heart and your mind first to
Yeah.
comedy, and then we can put the messages in.
Right. Sort of a spoonful of sugar. Can I say that?
Yeah.
But
You just did.
and I just did. And so with that, we've read reviews, we've heard people say it. Wow, it's so funny. And on the ride home, all we did was talk about the messages. And,
Right. Right.
And we laughed when they did this, and but
we've seen
gosh, the messages are pretty in depth.
And we've seen productions that have been directed more comedically,
Mhm.
and sometimes more dramatically, and sometimes in between. And they all kind of work in
They
their
all
own kind of way.
For me, and I'm speaking on behalf of our producer, Marcie Gorman, we are putting our best foot forward, our most loving hands around your creation, which is so easy to do. We're just so grateful that we have the opportunity to speak to you guys, and that you're happy to communicate with us and help raise another production of Disenchanted together.
Yes.
We're so excited.
Yeah.
I mean, you're one of the crown jewels now, in the
Yeah.
crown of Disenchanted. We're so
Yeah.
thrilled and pleased that you and Eminem, Marcie are doing the
We
show.
are with you in
and-
spirit, definitely, especially that you're doing it.
Yeah, and as you know, Jonathan, I mean, Fiely and I have always stood by, what we think the show should be about. But it's always been very much a company piece, right? It's you were very central in a lot of it. You mentioned Not Von Red Scent earlier. We actually created that song originally in Vancouver, BC, but it had no audience interaction until we got to you
guys.
and then when we got down to Tampa, we were like, something's not quite right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we Fiely and I and Matt West, who was the choreographer for the off-Broadway production and there in Tampa, stood on that stage and we just improvised, and suddenly it became this call and respond. And so it's always a team effort. We look at theater as it's a team sport, and
we can't wait for your audiences who's the last missing piece of this show, because since the show is no fourth wall and it's so communal, the experience, that the last piece you're missing will be the audience, and when you get that, it'll be magic.
Yeah, we always say there are 10 characters in the show, right? 10 princesses, and we always say that the 11th character in the show is the audience.
Yeah, because it's such a communal back and forth with the audience.
Which must make it an interesting show, I would think, to direct, because you literally are directing a show missing a character until opening night. And, we've heard this before. We've heard people say, we had so much fun with it in rehearsals. We had no idea until an audience entered, though, exactly what that reaction would be. And I know, Jonathan, you've seen the reactions,
Crazy.
And I know you're readying your actors for the reactions that are coming, and they'll never know until they experience them, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's very funny because we are, we're enjoying everything that we're doing, but I'm telling them, I'm like, ladies, you have no idea what's heading your way. And, and for audiences too, I mean, there's a lot of excitement, but of course, as the director, and yes, the audience is a very central piece of this puzzle. I tried to be the audience. So I'm really putting my acting skills to work. So, laughing over here and yelling things out here, to get them used to it. We've got very seasoned performers. But I think then there's that whole other level of their personal enjoyment. They're going to look forward to laughing. They're going to look forward to presenting this, every performance.
And there's so many things, I know you'll remember this, that are so surprising, things we never expected when we wrote it. And that's the beauty of live theater. There's that night in All I Want to Do Is Eat where the audience started throwing food on stage.
People coming back, giving the princesses food,
rolling canned food,
eat.
Suddenly it was a Rocky Horror Picture Show moment, in the show, and nobody expected that to happen. But how much fun is that for? Not that we're suggesting your audiences do that, but sorry, but what? It's so much fun to watch the actors sort of play off that,
right.
And just sort of go with the flow of the show, and the audience and their reaction to it. So we're super excited that this is a top-notch, group and production. You're top-notch, the actors are top. So we couldn't be more thrilled, for sure.
I don't know if you can see this, but it's one of our, we haven't taken
I saw that
shots yet, but
that's great. That's funny.
I'll send it to you until we get production photos. We're using our resources. But listen,
that's great.
Dennis, Giacino, and Fiely Matias, thank you for spending some time with us today. And we're going to keep you posted and be sending you photos and updates. And like I said, we're really looking forward to sharing Disenchanted here in Florida.
Yay.
Well, thank you, Jonathan, and
Van Dyke.
Yes, Jonathan Van Dyke. And thank everybody. Say hi to everybody.
to everybody.
From us. We're cheering from afar. Yes, all of you for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. And on
right.
behalf of Marcie and Eminem, thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.